Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for the final Roscoe's recap of the season, and this viewing party was for season 17 episode 16, which was the grand finale. And the guests this week were Morphine Love Dion and Kennedy Davenport. Today we're going to be talking about an update from last week's Roscoe's about who Thorgy Thor was talking about when she said she had a bad experience with a Drag Race queen, why people felt that Lexi Love should not make it to the top 2, and Jules Sparkles announces that she's taking a break due to negativity. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Also, I just want to say thank you for all the lovely and supportive comments you've left on my Roscoe's recaps this season. I'm really glad that you enjoy my videos, and if you could do me a favour and please help me get to 150,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and just hit that subscribe button if you love these videos and want to see more of them in the future. Thank you! Okay, so before we get into this week's Roscoe's recap, I just want to make a correction about something that happened in last week's Roscoe's recap. So you may remember that at Roscoe's last week, Thorgy Thor was one of the guests, and she was asked a question about which queen she did not enjoy working with. Thorgy had previously mentioned Alyssa Edwards, and then Thorgy went on to tell a story about a queen on the Haters Roast who spoiled that Thorgy was on All Stars 3, which had not aired at the time. And in general, Thorgy said this queen's jokes were just overly mean, not funny and uncomfortable. In my Roscoe's recap video last week, I said that most people online were in agreement that Thorgy was probably talking about Alyssa Edwards. However, after the video came out, I realised that I don't think Thorgy was actually talking about Alyssa, I actually think she was talking about Kim Chi. I also posted a correction in the pinned comment on the video, but I'm not sure how many people saw it, so I thought I'd mention it in this week's video. So after I posted the Roscoe's recap video last week, I remembered that I had actually once talked about the Thorgy versus Kim Chi drama in a video I did several years ago, but I had forgotten about it. So in that video, I mentioned that Thorgy had once talked about Kim Chi at an event, and when you hear what Thorgy said and compare it with the story that she told at Roscoe's, I think it's pretty obvious that Thorgy was indeed talking about Kim Chi. So let's play the clips side by side. Here is what Thorgy said last week at Roscoe's.
That was their roast, going, yeah, well, Thorgy, I heard you went home second on All Stars coming up.
Before?
That was yes! And everyone, and I was sitting next to Trixie Mattel, and Trixie under the table went like this. And it goes further with the other jokes, literally, on tour, no matter who I tour with, the least favorite person that I ever like spending time with is Thorgy Thor.
And here is a clip from several years ago with a video about Thorgy talking about Kim Chi.
Kim Chi went, and you could tell all of her jokes were written for her. And then she went on me, and this is Kim Chi's jokes at the roast. She was like, Thorgy Thor, out of all the girls that I tour with all year long, you're the least favorite that I've ever hung out with. Yeah, oh, and then she called me out. This is before All Stars even aired. She goes, you're so horrible that this is why you went home second on All Stars.
Oh my God.
This is what Kim Chi did, and we were there, and Trixie was next to me grabbing my arm like, oh, because it was so good, because I was watching her bomb, and I was like, oh, I love that Kim Chi's bombing right now. And we were backstage, and Kim Chi looks at me, and we were all looking at her like, girl, you have to explain yourself. And she goes, hey, Thorgy, did I go too far?
I also looked up the Haters Roast Tour lineup, and from what I can see on the Wikipedia entry, Alyssa did not join the Haters Roast until 2019, which was the year after All Stars 3 aired in 2018. And given that Thorgy said that this incident happened before All Stars 3 came out, it seems unlikely that it would have been Alyssa. However, just to make it clear, please do not send any hate to Kim Chi or Alyssa. I'm only mentioning this because I think it's important to correct a potential mistake. But this happened a long time ago, and Thorgy and Kim Chi may have already settled this, so please do not send any hate and just enjoy this type of content passively. Okay, so now let's move on to this week's Roscoe's recap. They started off by talking about the eliminated Queen's runway looks, and in particular Arrietty's look. Morphine said she loved Arrietty's cat look with the prosthetics. Kennedy then said, quote, "Are we forgiving her?" And some people in the audience gasped. This is presumably referring to the fact that Arrietty got a lot of backlash because of the rude mirror message she left about Anya earlier in the season, which caused a lot of people to turn against Arrietty. Naysha said this was a good question, and in her opinion, because Arrietty apologised to Anya in last week's episode and Anya forgave Arrietty, there's no reason for us not to forgive her either, because it was something between those two. Naysha said, quote, "Do I think it was shady? Absolutely." But she explained that last week Arrietty apologised and it was very, quote, mature of her to do it, so she thinks it's only fair that we forgive Arrietty as well. Kennedy said, quote, "Oh, she apologised?" Naysha said yes, but Kennedy kind of rolled her eyes and people laughed. Kennedy then said, quote, "Y'all want me to get started early?" And everyone said yes and laughed. Kennedy said she feels the same way that she felt when Trixie put up that note on All Stars 3, which was that she was, quote, fighting mad. Kennedy then said, quote, "It couldn't have been me, because that discussion happened when Kennedy wasn't there, but Kennedy said, quote, 'cause I would have, yeah,' and she didn't finish the sentence." Kennedy then presumably started talking about Arrietty instead, and then said, quote, "I'm still mad at her, I ain't never met her, I have yet to meet her, I'll charge it to the game of television, but that effing bleep weren't right." Naysha said she thinks that it was more the case that Arrietty's message genuinely hurt Anya's feelings, rather than Anya being mad about it, and that's why Arrietty apologised to Anya. Kennedy then said she wouldn't have been mad about it, it would have just hurt her feelings, and, quote, "You don't say things to hurt people's feelings, especially when you have established relationships with these people." They then watched the top 4 performances, and Kennedy said she wanted to talk about Lexi. When Naysha asked what they thought of Lexi's performance, Kennedy just said, quote, "meh," and people screamed and laughed. They asked Kennedy to elaborate, and Kennedy said, quote, "I just don't think it was top 4 quality, and she's been skating by the whole season." Kennedy went on to say that it's no shade because she's met Lexi and she's a sweet person, but in Kennedy's opinion, quote, "she should have been gone," presumably meaning she thinks Lexi should have been eliminated, and there was another gasp from the audience. Naysha asked who Kennedy would have replaced Lexi with in the top 4, and Kennedy said Susie Toot. Although Kennedy did say that Susie was, quote, "a little bit full of herself, and you can't be walking around saying how good you are," which Kennedy described as, quote, "the milk delusion," which is a reference to Milk on All Stars 3. But Kennedy said all of the top 4 girls were good, but she didn't care for Lexi's number. Host Caramel then mentioned that Susie won the Lip Sync Lollapalooza last week, and Morphine won the Lollapalooza on her season, so she passed the torch to Susie, and Cara asked if Morphine agreed with Susie winning. Morphine said Susie did a great job, and Morphine used to host a show in Miami, which Susie used to come to, and Susie would, quote, "slay the girls," so she said that Susie and her have a lot in common. But Morphine said she was rooting for Corey King a little bit more, because Corey is her YouTube sister, because both Corey and Morphine have YouTube channels. Morphine also said that Corey, quote, "made something out of nothing," and she's one of the most popular queens from the season, and she did that all herself. And so that's why Morphine was a bit shocked that Susie won, but she said she's really happy for Susie. They talked a bit more about the final 4 queens' performances and they ranked them, and all of them on stage ranked Lexi's performance as the lowest. Naysha explained and said, quote, "I love that she roller skated, that was great, but we didn't see anything we haven't seen before." Naysha then said the split in the air, we've already seen that. Morphine said she just did that yesterday at Drag Race Live. Kennedy said she started that, which Morphine agreed with. Morphine then said she wasn't trying to throw any shade, but it's funny because the season 17 finale was filmed right after the season 17 queens came to see Drag Race Live in Las Vegas, which Morphine is part of. So Morphine is wondering if Lexi saw that show and thought, quote, "oh, I'm going to do that trick," because apparently Morphine looked at Lexi when she did that move on stage. Naysha then said correct her if she's wrong, but didn't Mistress Isabel Brooks also do a split like that? And everyone started laughing. Naysha then said, quote, Mistress did a split and y'all lived for it because it was Mistress and it was fierce. Kennedy then said, quote, no, they gagged because she was bigger than the mother effers, and some people gasped and laughed. Naysha said she was trying to be a bit kinder, but the point is that Mistress also did that split move in her finale number as well. And if someone was choreographing a finale number for Naysha, she would have asked them to think of something else, or she would have thought of something else, because other queens have already done that move before. Kennedy said that that type of move is, quote, the element of surprise for someone like Mistress, and Kennedy's drag mother is a big girl, and her first cheerleader talent was that she was up in the air doing the splits, so those types of things are, quote, gag-worthy moments. But if you're doing the splits every episode, and presumably she was talking about Lexi, then the effect wears off. They then watched the part of the episode when Crystal Envy was chosen as Miss Congeniality. Naysha said you have to remember that the queens are the ones who vote for Miss Congeniality, so they're basing it off their own experiences with the queens and that's how they feel. So Naysha said don't go online and start saying that another queen should have won Miss Congeniality. And, for example, when Jules Sparkles was at Roscoe's last week, Naysha specifically asked Jules how she felt about Crystal. Jules went on and on about how amazing Crystal was and how she was so nice to everyone and helped them make stuff, and she also let queens borrow things from her. Also, when Crystal got eliminated, she left a gift for every queen. So Naysha said it was, quote, very well deserved that Crystal won Miss Congeniality. Morphine then said, quote, that's crazy because Xunami didn't do none of that, and everyone laughed. Morphine clarified that she did not vote for Xunami Muse to win Miss Congeniality. She voted for Sephira Crystal and Hershey LaCour-Jeté, and, quote, when I heard Xunami won, I was confused. However, Morphine clarified that Xunami will laugh when she hears Morphine say that, and they're best friends and they talk every day, but she said Xunami is, quote, so rotted, and when you talk to someone every day, you realise how rotted they are. Morphine joked that she says to Xunami all the time, quote, how did you win this effing title, girl? But you know, good for her, and people laughed. Caramel then said that Sephira was the guest at Roscoe's last week, and that's probably why Sephira didn't really say much about Miss Congeniality, because they had probably already filmed the finale at that point, so Sephira obviously couldn't say that much because she knew who was going to win Miss Congeniality. Cara also said she thought Lana or Corey might get Miss Congeniality, because Corey is probably one of the most successful queens after the show, probably because of things like her cameos, and since Valentina on season 9, they sort of changed the title to fan favourite anyway. They moved on, and Caramel said that both Morphine and Kennedy have done Drag Race Live, and Jules won a kind of residency at Drag Race Live as a prize. So Caramel asked Morphine and Kennedy, do they think it's a good thing to give the queens a residency in Drag Race Live as a prize, because it benefits the queens after the show? Kennedy said, quote, not at all. Kennedy explained the reason she says that is because, quote, Drag Race Live is a different beast and is not fit for everybody. And just because you're a Drag Race girl or you're part of a certain company does not give you a ticket to be on that show, because you have to be willing to come into work every day and do the same thing every week. And she said maybe they could give the queens a test run to be on Drag Race Live, but no, Kennedy does not think that they should get a residency as a prize. Naysha asked them what a typical day is like at Drag Race Live. Morphine said for her, it was hard adjusting because it's 6 shows a week and you get 2 days off, and Morphine likes to party, but unfortunately she partied the first 3 weeks she was there and then she got, quote, burnt out. Kennedy said that's the point she was making, and Morphine managed to pull it off, but it's hard work and it's not easy. They then got to the part when the top 2 was announced as Lexi and Jules. Naysha said, let's be honest, there's someone on there that if they had been called as part of the top 2, people would have been like, what the F? Naysha later went on to say that when they say these sorts of things, it doesn't mean they love these queens any less, they love all the queens. But, quote, should my very good girlfriend Lexi be in the top 2? No, I don't see it, and that's not shade. Kennedy joked that they're all watching the same show, so the audience already agreed, but the other host, Batty Davis, said, quote, "Well, you would think that, Kennedy." Morphine asked if they all liked Nymphia Wynn's step-down look, and people cheered. Morphine said Nymphia made that outfit herself, and she, quote, "finished it the day of," and she FaceTimed Morphine sweating and stressing because she was still finishing the outfit. Kennedy said, quote, "That sounds about right," and she turned away and sort of said under her breath, quote, "She's a late-ass queen," but it was hard to hear because Morphine was still talking. Batty and Cara laughed, and Cara said, speaking of that, can Kennedy share her experience working with Nymphia on Drag Race Live Untucked Season 2? Kennedy said she actually enjoyed Nymphia, but, quote, "she's a prime example of don't know if that particular job fits her. She did the gig, but I don't think, will she return? I don't think so." They then got to the part of the episode when Anya was announced as the winner of season 17, and they all cheered and screamed for Anya and sent their congratulations to Anya. Batty then said she had something to say, but it didn't matter, but they said it does matter. Batty said that at the beginning of the season, everyone was very intimidated by Anya and saying that she was going to win. She then got in Lexi's head and in Susie's head, and she had a fight with Jules, and all of this other stuff happened. So, quote, "they let her win by default by her getting in their heads." However, I don't think Batty was discrediting Anya's win. She was just making an observation of how the others let Anya intimidate them within the competition by getting in their heads. They moved on to the Q&A, and there was a question for Morphine about can she elaborate on the date that she went on with the same guy who also hit up Plane Jane, but Plane couldn't go on the date. I assume this might be a story that Morphine has told on her YouTube channel when she had Plane Jane on as a guest, but I'm not entirely sure. Morphine went on to tell quite a long story that when she and Plane were in Vegas doing Drag Race Live, a really attractive man was watching the show in the VIP and he kept staring at Morphine. Then afterwards at the meet and greet, he said to Morphine and Plane how that was the best night of his life and he loves both of them. Morphine also said she noticed he was wearing a wedding ring. The next day, this man messaged Morphine using a whole new Instagram profile, saying that she was his favourite and that he loved the show. Morphine showed the message to Plane, and it turned out that this man had also messaged the exact same thing to Plane Jane. Then, one thing led to another, and Plane was out of town, so she told Morphine to just, quote, "go get it." So Morphine carried on talking to this man, but she got nervous and didn't end up going on the date with him. Morphine said she also cyberstalked this man on social media and found out that he's married to a woman and has a child. But she said that next week he's flying back out to see Morphine, and Morphine asked the audience if she should go on the date, and most people shouted yes. Also, Morphine said she later couldn't find him on Facebook, and maybe he deleted his account, so maybe he and his wife are no longer together. But the others on stage said no, and Nasia said what actually probably happened was that he realised that Morphine had found him on Facebook, and he got scared, so he probably deleted his account or blocked Morphine to stop his family finding out about it. Nasia then said that Morphine should, quote, absolutely not go on the date because although queens love some trade, quote, kids, married, karma. Morphine agreed and said he just wanted to hang out, and they all said no and that's not what's going to happen, and everyone laughed. Kennedy then said to Morphine, quote, I want you to stop lying to yourself, he won a F. Kennedy then said that the story sounds so boring and, quote, either you're going to have the man or don't have the man. Morphine said he's messaging her every day, and then Morphine joked that she would let you know what happens on her YouTube channel, and I'll link to Morphine's YouTube channel in the description, so go and check it out and see if Morphine ever posts an update. And finally, I just wanted to mention something that happened outside of Roscoe's to do with the Drag Race finale and Jules Sparkles taking a break. So after the finale, Jules tweeted congratulating Anya for winning. However, in a follow-up tweet, Jules alluded to some potential backlash and negativity she's received since the finale. And Jules said, "Taking a break from Twitter again now to preserve my mental heart emoji. It's sad that instead of just celebrating Anya's glorious win, people have to pit us against each other, and it breaks my heart actually, so I'll be back when y'all shut the F up. Love you so much, bye." Jules got a lot of support in the comments with people calling out the toxic Drag Race fans. And, for example, Drag Race UK Season 6 winner Kyron Thrax tweeted seemingly in response to this and said, "By the way, don't call yourself a Drag Race fan if you're online bullying people because your fave didn't win. You're not a fan, you're a troll." And on the other side of it, there were also replies to Jules' tweet, which seemed to go exactly against what Jules was asking for about people not pitting the queens against each other and being hateful. For example, one of the tweets I saw was in Spanish and said, "F you at Anya Nerve, the real winner of season 17 is our beloved queen at Jules Sparkles." And another example was a tweet that was responding to Jules saying, "This victory was yours, Anya is very generic." There were also some other more extreme replies which I won't show here, but Jules deciding to take a break from Twitter is just one of many queens who have also done that because of the backlash or the hate they get from the fans. But in general, please remember that it's not okay to be mean to the queens, and it's especially not okay to tag the queens telling them to go F themselves or that they didn't deserve to win. It's just a TV show at the end of the day and it's not that serious. So please just remember to be respectful to the queens. They're also humans just like we are, so please keep that in mind when writing comments online. So there you go, there was the final Roscoe's recap for RuPaul's Drag Race Season 17. What did you think of Season 17 overall? And what was your favourite memory from the season? Let me know in the comments. Also, I'd love to give a special shout out to my newest Patreon member, Dylan, who joined in the You're a Winner Baby tier. Dylan, you are definitely a winner, baby. If you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos and access to the exclusive Patreon chat, please check out my Patreon because it just costs a few dollars a month. It really helps support my channel and it really does make a huge difference to me being able to make these videos. So please check it out and I'll put a link in the description. And I'd just like to say thank you so much to all of my existing Patreon members. Your support really does blow me away every single time. I love the community I've built on Patreon and I love talking to you all on Patreon. So thank you so much for your continued support. It really does mean more than you know. Please make sure you like and comment on my videos because it really helps boost the video in the algorithm and promote it to more people. And please make sure you hit the subscribe button if you liked this video and you want to see more of them. Thank you for watching and I hope you'll join me again in a future video. Thank you, bye!